A heavy bronze cup trembles in a sweating hand, sending ripples through the dark wine. From the shadows, the slow, metallic hiss of a sword sliding from its scabbard tears through the silence. In 206 BC, inside a military tent, the two most powerful warlords in China sat down for a meal. There were no charging chariots, no screaming arrows. Yet historians agree that this single dinner determined the fate of the Asian continent for the next 400 years. It was a paradox of survival. One man, the hegemon, commanded a ruthless army of 400,000 soldiers and held the blade. The other was a peasant commander trapped with a mere 100,000 men, helpless and bowing on the floor. But by the time the wine cups were empty, the man with the army had sealed his own death warrant, and the man on his knees had secured an eternal empire. Welcome back to the History Atlas. Today, we step into the deadliest banquet in human history, a trap so famous it became an idiom for treachery itself, the feast at Hong Gate. To understand why a simple dinner became a death trap, we must first look at the shattered map of China in 206 BC. The terrifying Qin Dynasty, the tiger that had swallowed the 6 states, was dead. Qin Shi Huang's immortality had rotted away in a carriage of fish, and the empire had collapsed into a firestorm of rebellion. From the ashes, warlords rose like locusts, but 2 names towered above the rest. One was Xiang Yu, a towering aristocrat of the fallen state of Chu, a man born with double pupils and a rage that could shake the heavens. The other was Liu Bang, a low-born peasant official who preferred wine and women to war, yet possessed a strange magnetic ability to make men die for him. To motivate these rebel generals, King Ky II of Chu issued a fateful decree, a promise that would tear the alliance apart, stating that whoever entered the pass of Guanzhong and took the Qin capital first would be named King of Rebel Sect, Guanzhong. It was the ultimate prize, the heartland of the empire. The race began immediately. Xiang Yu, the supreme commander, took the hard road leading the main Chu host north to smash the last terrifying remnants of the Qin imperial army. His path was paved with blood and iron, and at the Battle of Julu he crushed the Qin main force, and in a display of ruthless efficiency buried 200,000 surrendered Qin soldiers alive. He left nothing behind him but scorched earth and terror. Liu Bang, however, was cunning. While the hegemon fought the tigers, the peasant slipped through the back door. Leading a smaller force of roughly 100,000, he took the southern route, avoiding the heavy fighting. He accepted surrenders, forbade looting, and won the hearts of the people. In October of 206 BC, the impossible happened. The peasant Liu Bang walked into the impregnable capital of Xianyang. He was first. By the king's decree, the crown was his. He sealed the imperial treasuries, closed the palace doors, and waited for his reward. But Liu Bang had made a fatal calculation. He believed that a piece of paper from a puppet king could protect him from a god of war. He had won the race, yes, but he had forgotten that in an age of chaos, the only law is force. And the force was coming. From the north, a dark cloud of 400,000 furious soldiers was marching toward the capital, and they were not coming to congratulate him. When Xiang Yu's grand host arrived at the Hanggu Pass, the legendary stone gateway that separated the chaotic east from the imperial heartland, he expected to ride through open gates as a conqueror. Instead, he found them barred. Above the battlements, the flags did not bear the black color of Qin, but the red of Han. Liu Bang's soldiers were manning the walls, refusing entry to the very man who had destroyed the Qin main army. for Xiang Yu, a man who had just butchered hundreds of thousands to clear a path to glory. This was not just a military obstruction, it was a personal insult that demanded blood. His fury was stoked into an inferno by a secret message from within the enemy camp. Cao Wushang, a traitorous general serving under Liu Bang, sent a rider to Xiang Yu with a lethal whisper, claiming that Liu Bang intended to declare himself king of Guanzhong, appoint the last Qin prince as his chancellor, and claim all the imperial treasures for himself. It was a lie mixed with just enough truth to ignite the hegemon's paranoia. Xiang Yu smashed his fist onto his table and ordered his soldiers to be fed well that night, for the next morning they would smash the pass and exterminate Liu Bang. In the command tent, the atmosphere was thick with the anticipation of slaughter. But one man sat quietly, his eyes seeing what others missed. This was Fan Zheng Xiang Yu's 70-year-old advisor, a strategist so respected that the hegemon called him second father. He did not care about the insult, he cared about the cosmic order. Fan Zheng leaned forward, his voice raspy with urgency, warning that when Liu Bang lived in the east he was greedy for money and lusted after beautiful women. But since entering the capital he had not taken a single coin nor touched a single woman. His desires had vanished, which meant his ambition was no longer small, but as large as the world itself. He pointed a trembling finger toward the enemy camp, claiming he had watched the Qi or aura above his army, and it took the shape of dragons and tigers in 5 colors. That was the sign of a son of heaven. He urged his lord to strike immediately, for if he let him live, the dragon would devour them all. The camp of 400,000 soldiers began to stir the fires of their cooking pots, lighting up the night sky like a ring of hell. Liu Bang's head was scheduled to fall at dawn. But as the Chu army sharpened their blades, they didn't notice a single shadow slipping out of their camp into the darkness, carrying a secret that would twist the knife of fate. The shadow moving through the night was Xiang Bo, the uncle of the terrifying hegemon. He rode hard toward the enemy lines, not to defect, but to save a life. Inside the Han camp, he found his old friend Zhang Liang, Liu Bang's brilliant strategist, and urged him to leave before the slaughter began. But Zhang Liang refused to abandon his lord. Instead, he dragged the messenger deep into the command tent to meet the very man Xiang Yu intended to kill. What followed was a masterclass in political survival. Liu Bang, the peasant leader, did not panic. He looked at Xiang Bo, a man who could end his life with a single word, and poured him a cup of wine. Despite being the leader of an army, Liu Bang bowed low, treating the enemy's uncle like a revered ancestor. He lied with practiced sincerity, claiming he entered the pass only to guard the treasures and await the general, and that he would never dare to betray Lord Xiang Yu. In the flickering candlelight, a desperate deal was struck. Liu Bang offered a marriage alliance, pledging his own family to Xiang Bo's clan to prove his loyalty. The wine sealed the pact. Swayed by the flattery and the promise of kinship, Xiang Bo rode back to the Chu camp before dawn. He stood before his nephew, the raging Xiang Yu, and spoke words of peace, asking how he could have entered so easily if Liu Bang had not crushed the Qin first. He argued that to kill a man who has achieved such merit is unrighteous. Xiang Yu, a man whose heart was as simple as it was violent, listened. His rage cooled. He canceled the order to attack. Instead, he sent a messenger with a different command, ordering Liu Bang to come to the Chu camp at Hong Gate the next morning for a peaceful banquet. It was the reprieve Liu Bang had prayed for, but in the shadows of the Chu tent, the advisor Fan Zheng narrowed his eyes. The army would not march, but the trap was still set. The next morning, the sun rose over a valley that felt less like a meeting ground and more like an execution yard. Liu Bang arrived at the Chu camp at Hong Gate, but he did not come with an army. He brought a meager escort of only 100 cavalry, a deliberate display of vulnerability. He walked through the rows of 400,000 enemy soldiers, their spears forming a forest of steel on either side, their eyes watching him like wolves watching a limping deer. When he entered the main command tent, Liu Bang threw his dignity to the floor. He dropped to his knees before Xiang Yu, pressing his forehead into the dust, pleading that he merely entered the pass by accident and never dared to dream of power. He claimed some vile traitor must have whispered lies to turn the general against his brother. Xiang Yu, looking down from his high seat, felt his anger evaporate. He was a man of simple, brute emotions, and seeing his rival so pathetic and submissive satisfied his ego. In a moment of careless arrogance, he blurted out the truth, revealing that it was Liu Bang's own left marshal Cao Wushang who told him. With that one sentence, he unknowingly signed the death warrant of his own spy, but for now, the tension seemed to break. Xiang Yu ordered the feast to begin. But as the wine was poured, the seating arrangement revealed the true danger of the room. In ancient Chinese protocol, the seat was a map of power. Xiang Yu sat facing east, the position of the emperor or the supreme lord. His advisor, Fan Zheng, sat facing south. But Liu Bang was placed facing north, the seat reserved for a servant or a subordinate. Without a single word being spoken, the hierarchy was set. Xiang Yu was the master, and Liu Bang was the subject. The air in the tent was heavy smelling of roasted meat and terror. Liu Bang drank his wine with shaking hands, his eyes darting to the shadows. He thought his apology had saved him. But across the low table, the old advisor Fan Zheng was not drinking. He was staring at Liu Bang with cold predator eyes. Slowly, deliberately, Fan Zheng lifted his jade pendant a half-circle ring and flashed it at Xiang Yu. Once. Twice. 3 times. It was the prearranged signal to kill him now. Xiang Yu did not move. He sat frozen in a strange paralysis of pride and indecision, ignoring the frantic clicking of jade against jade. The hegemon of Western Chu, who had never hesitated to butcher a city, found himself unable to kill a guest who was kneeling at his feet in such total submission. Seeing his lord waver, Fan Zheng realized that the window of opportunity was closing. He stood up his face, a mask of frustration, and stormed out of the tent to summon his cousin Xiang Zhuang. The order was whispered but lethal. Enter the feast, offer a toast, and then perform a sword dance to entertain the guests. But in the middle of a spin strike, Liu Bang down. Xiang Zhuang entered the tent with a smile that did not reach his eyes. He drew his blade the metal, singing a high, clear note in the heavy air. The dance began. It was a performance of terrifying grace. The sword was not a weapon, but a ribbon of light swirling closer and closer to where Liu Bang sat frozen. With every turn, the blade cut the air inches from the future emperor's nose, the wind from the steel cooling the sweat on his face. The assassination was no longer a secret. It was happening in plain sight. But just as the lethal strike seemed inevitable, another figure rose from the mats. It was Xiang Bo, the man who had brokered the truce the night before. Unsheathing his own sword, he stepped onto the floor, claiming to join the performance. It was a desperate, improvised duel disguised as a dance. Every time Xiang Zhuang lunged toward Liu Bang, Xiang Bo spun his body to block the path, spreading his wide sleeves like the wings of a protective bird to shield the terrified guest. The tent filled with the rhythmic clashing of steel and the heavy breathing of the dancers. A deadly ballet played out, while the warlords watched in silence. Liu Bang was seconds away from being accidentally decapitated, and his strategist Zhang Liang knew that a simple sword could no longer save them. He needed a monster to fight a monster. Zhang Liang slipped out of the suffocating tent and found Fan Kuai Liu Bang's loyal bodyguard pacing outside like a caged tiger. He whispered that the dance was a trap, and their lord's life hung by a thread. Fan Kuai, a former dog butcher with a neck as thick as a bull's, did not ask for permission. He grabbed his iron shield and a sword and charged toward the entrance. When the guards crossed their halberds to stop him, Fan Kuai didn't slow down. He slammed his shield into them with the force of a battering ram, sending armed men sprawling into the dirt. He tore open the tent flaps and stood there, a mountain of muscle and rage. His hair was disheveled, bristling like a lion's mane, and his eyes were so wide with fury that it seemed the corners of his eyelids would split. The music died instantly. The sword dance stopped. Even Xiang Yu, the man who feared nothing under heaven, instinctively reached for the hilt of his sword and half rose from his seat, asking who the intruder was. Zhang Liang stepped forward quickly, identifying him as Fan Kuai, the carriage attendant of the peasant lord. Xiang Yu stared at the giant panting man and slowly lowered his hand. Instead of anger, a strange look of admiration crossed his face, the respect of one warrior for another's raw power. He called him a brave warrior and ordered him given a cup of wine. A massive bowl was thrust into Fan Kuai's hands. He didn't sip, he drained it in a single gulp, standing rigid. Xiang Yu ordered him given a shoulder of pork, testing him further. The servants brought out a raw, uncooked pig's leg. To the horror of the refined nobles, Fan Kuai did not ask for a knife or a fire. He slammed his iron shield onto the ground, placed the bloody meat upon it, drew his sword and began to hack off chunks, devouring them, raw blood dripping down his chin as he stared directly into Xiang Yu's eyes. When asked if he could drink more, Fan Kuai wiped his mouth and delivered one of the most famous speeches in Chinese history. He roared that he did not fear death, so why should he decline a cup of wine? He reminded the hegemon that the Qin king had a heart like a wolf and a tiger, killing men until the bodies filled the valleys. He pointed out that Xiang Yu and his lord united to fight him, and though his lord entered the capital first, he sealed the treasury and camped in the wild to await Xiang Yu's arrival. He demanded to know why his lord's reward was the threat of death, based on the whispers of traitors warning that this was the path that led to the death of Qin. Xiang Yu was stunned. The brute honesty of the butcher had pierced his armor of arrogance. He had no counter-argument. Shamed into silence, the hegemon simply pointed to a seat. Fan Kuai sat next to Zhang Liang, his massive presence, acting as a physical wall between the assassins and his lord. The assassination attempt had been stalled by sheer force of will. But Liu Bang knew this was only a pause, not a pardon. The tiger was confused, not tamed, and he needed to vanish before the bloodlust returned. Minutes later, Liu Bang stood up, his face pale and slick with sweat. He muttered a crude excuse about needing to visit the latrine and signaled Fan Kuai to follow him. Once they stepped out of the warm, smoky tent into the biting cold of the winter night, the pretense of calm evaporated. Liu Bang looked back at the tent, paralyzed by the rigid rules of ancient etiquette, asking nervously if it was rude to leave without saying goodbye. Fan Kuai, wiping the grease of the raw pork from his mouth, grabbed his lord by the arm. His words cut through the confusion like a butcher's knife. He told his lord that when doing great deeds, one does not bother with small details, and when establishing great etiquette, one does not fuss over trifles. He pointed back at the feast, declaring that right now, They were the knife and the chopping block, and the Han were the fish and the meat. So why in the world would they say goodbye? The logic was brutal and undeniable. They were not guests, they were prey. Liu Bang abandoned his carriage and his entourage. He stripped off his heavy formal robes to ride, lighter. Mounting a horse with Fan Kuai and 3 other loyal officers running on foot beside him, they vanished into the darkness. They did not take the main road. Instead, they plunged into a narrow, overgrown shortcut, leading back to the Han camp at Bashang, a desperate 20-mile sprint for survival. Back at the feast, the seat of the future emperor remained empty. Zhang Liang, the strategist, stayed behind, counting the heartbeats. He waited in the lion's den, making small talk and excuses, estimating the time it would take for a horse to gallop 20 miles. Only when he was certain that Liu Bang was beyond the reach of the Chu cavalry did he stand up, straighten his robes, and prepare to deliver the news that would shatter the peace. Zhang Liang walked back into the command tent, holding the jade gifts in his hands like funeral offerings. He bowed low, his voice steady in the silence, telling the hegemon that the peasant duke had a capacity for wine that was too small, became drunk and unable to say farewell, and had already departed. Before the rage could explode, Zhang Liang presented the treasures a pair of white jade discs for Xiang Yu and a pair of jade cups for Fan Zheng. The reaction of the 2 Chu leaders perfectly encapsulated why one would lose the empire and the other would lose his life. Xiang Yu, the hegemon, looked at the beautiful white jade and smiled. He accepted the apology and placed the discs on his seat, satisfied that his rival had been humiliated and sent fleeing into the night. He saw submission where he should have seen survival. But Fan Zheng saw the end of the world. The old strategist grabbed the jade cups intended for him. He did not admire them. He threw them onto the stone floor and drew his sword. With a scream of pure frustration, he struck the jade, shattering it into 1,000 glittering shards. He cursed, spitting on the ground, declaring that the child Xiang Yu was not worthy of planning with, and that the one who would steal the world from him was Liu Bang. Fan Zheng's prophecy took only 4 years to come true. Upon returning to his camp, Liu Bang immediately executed the traitor, Cao Wushang, the first act of a man who would no longer tolerate weakness. The war that followed the Chu-Han contention tore China apart. But the balance had shifted. The man who escaped the feast grew stronger, while the man who spared him grew isolated. In 202 BC, surrounded and alone at the banks of the Wu River, Xiang Yu, the god of war, who once commanded 400,000 men, slit his own throat. He had lost the empire not on the battlefield, but at a dinner table. Today, the feast at Hong Gate is not just a historical footnote. In China, the phrase Hongmen Yan is still used to describe a treacherous meeting, a trap disguised as a celebration. It stands as a chilling reminder that in the game of power, a dropped cup can be louder than a cannon, and mercy to an enemy is often a death sentence for oneself. Please subscribe to our channel to relive heroic chapters of history with us.